Alfie and Kat's wedding day, and Phil's planning a Christmas surprise of his own. 2 visits to Albert Square tonight on BBC One at 6 o'clock and 8:40. But right now, it's news time with George Alagaya.
Christmas Day violence in the Middle East. 5 Palestinians are killed. Then the first suicide bomb in over 2 months, 3 dead in Tel Aviv. A tribute to British forces, the Queen's Christmas message goes on location. And Silent Night, British scientists are still waiting for a signal from Beagle 2. Good evening. At least 3 people have been killed in a bombing at a bus stop in the Israeli city of Tel Aviv. It's thought to be the first suicide attack in over 2 months. The Tel Aviv bomb came just minutes after Israeli forces killed 5 Palestinians, including a senior Islamic militant, during a helicopter attack in Gaza.
The aftermath of yet another suicide bombing. It happened just outside Tel Aviv at a bus stop during the rush hour. In the ensuing chaos, it was difficult to reach the scene. But soon it became clear that Israelis were among the dead and injured, and that the bomber was also killed. This was the first suicide attack in Israel since October, when 22 people died in a restaurant in Haifa. But with little or no progress between the Palestinians and the Israelis, the killings continue on both sides. In Gaza, an Israeli gunship killed a senior Islamic militant and 4 others in a missile attack as a revenge for the shooting of their soldiers. According to the Israelis, the jihad extremist leader was deliberately targeted. This was the first such attack on Gaza for more than 2 months. But it happened just before the bus bombing in Tel Aviv this evening, and demonstrates yet again that any appearance of calm is just an illusion, say the Israelis. Doubtless these latest killings will produce calls for restraint, but that's unlikely so long as the 2 sides are not talking to each other. John McIntyre, BBC News.
Our Middle East correspondent James Reynolds is in Jerusalem now. James, 2 attacks in one day. How much of a setback is this?
It is a very big setback, George. There had been a lull for 2 months before this. No suicide attacks and no Israeli missile strikes. Now, during that time, there have been plenty of attempts by official peacemakers, by freelance peacemakers, and by international mediators to try to get the diplomatic process back on track. But all those efforts came to nothing. So now, within the space of about half an hour, we've had a suicide attack and an Israeli missile strike. That is a setback, and tonight, the Israeli government has announced that it is closing off the West Bank and Gaza.
James, thank you. Pakistan's president has narrowly escaped assassination by 2 suicide bombers. It happened in Rawalpindi as President Pervez Musharraf's convoy passed through. 14 people were killed. The president later appeared on television saying the attack was carried out by terrorists and extremists. Here, police have launched a murder inquiry after the bodies of a woman and 2 girls were found at a house in Willenhall near Wolverhampton. The victims have been named as Lisa Higgins and her daughters Keely and Demi. A 27-year-old man has been arrested. The Queen has made her first public appearance since surgery on her knee and face. She attended a church service on the Sandringham estate. And in her traditional Christmas message, the Queen paid tribute to Britain's armed forces. Here's our royal correspondent, Nicholas Witchell.
2 weeks after the surgery to her left knee, the Queen was walking with a stick, but without any apparent difficulty. The surgery to remove 3 benign skin lesions on her face also appears to have healed well. With all her immediate family around her, the Queen is said still to be saddened by the death of one of her corgis, which was attacked on Monday by a bull terrier belonging to Princess Anne. This year's Christmas message dealt with more serious matters. Recorded at an army barracks, it focused on the work of the armed services.
This year, I'm speaking to you from the Household Cavalry Barracks in Windsor, because I want to draw attention to the many servicemen and women who are stationed far from home this Christmas.
It was carefully scripted. The Queen only mentioned Iraq once, but for the work done there and elsewhere by the armed services, she said the nation should be grateful.
I think we all have very good reasons for feeling proud of their achievements, both in war and as they help to build a lasting peace in trouble spots across the globe. We met before.
Yes,
when
that's right. Yeah.
The Queen was shown mingling with servicemen and women who'd served in Iraq, but she also addressed her thoughts to the families of those who will never return.
I know that all our thoughts at this time are with the families who are suffering the pain of bereavement. All those who have recently lost a close relative or friend will know how difficult Christmas can be.
It was a Christmas message with a particular purpose, to thank the armed services after a challenging 12 months. Tonight, the special Christmas illuminations are giving Buckingham Palace a particularly patriotic feel. And that at the end of a year in which Britain's armed forces were taken to war. And whatever the rights or wrongs of that campaign, as the Queen indicated in her broadcast, they accomplished what was asked of them with distinction. Nicholas Witchell, BBC News, at Buckingham Palace.
In his Christmas sermon, the Archbishop of Canterbury, Dr. Rowan Williams, called on people to be more open about their faith. Dr. Williams also criticised the French government for its plans to ban Muslim headscarves and crucifixes from schools. Thousands of worshippers gathered in St. Peter's Square in Rome to receive the Pope's Christmas blessing. Pope John Paul spoke out against what he called the scourges of terrorism, violence and war. British scientists have had an anxious Christmas day, waiting to hear if the Beagle spacecraft has managed to land on Mars. It was due to touchdown before dawn this morning, but no contact has yet been made. Here's David Shookman.
At the present time, we do not have a signal from Beagle 2.
The architect of the search for life on Mars with bad news on Christmas morning. Silence, so far, from the spacecraft Beagle 2. So, is he worried it's all over? Not at all.
I am never downhearted. I played it as absolutely straight as we could. We thought we had a good system, and we still think we've got a good system. We haven't given up yet.
The plan was for Beagle 2 to announce its landing with this tune. It was composed by the rock group Blur. We didn't hear it today. Maybe that's only a communication problem. That's the hope.
The chances were against us, really, but I think the chances of finding it are still very, very good.
Now, it is possible that Beagle 2 has landed safely, but that things have gone wrong since then. Maybe the solar panels haven't opened properly and the batteries aren't getting charged up sufficiently, or something's gone wrong with this antenna, the square shape here. It transmits its signals vertically upwards in a pretty narrow cone, so it's possible that the NASA spacecraft passing overhead simply didn't connect. Tonight, there's another chance. This giant radio telescope at Jodrell Bank in Cheshire is listening for signals from Mars. The smallest bleep would show Beagle 2 has made it, but silence would point to failure. David Shookman, BBC News.
And that's it. I'll be back at 8:30 here on BBC One, and there's news every hour on BBC News 24. You can find it on satellite, Freeview and cable. But from all of us here in the newsroom, I hope you're having a very Merry Christmas.
Good evening. There may have been a bit of snow over the tops of the Scottish mountains, but I think it's rain that focused some people's mind. I'd imagine Christmas Day was a bit disappointing from the point of view of weather in Lancashire and Cumbria and maybe even North Wales. And far from getting better, it is likely to be even more of a write-off day tomorrow, with rain quite widespread, heavy at times throughout this part of England and Wales. And it might say 10 or 11 degrees, it'll feel just the same as today. And it's not just Lancashire involved, there's a massive cloud over the UK, and we're still drawing the air for a long way south from the warm waters of the Atlantic, more or less near the Canary Islands. And all the time we do that will be frost-free and mild by day, and that's true tonight, but also it'll be cloudy and wet, and not just for Lancashire. If you don't see rain tomorrow, you'll be exceedingly lucky. It'll be pretty widespread by the morning, and it will continue into the afternoon. And for some places, that persistence and the heaviness could be something of a worry. Another 2 inches could well fall, 50 millimetres, and for Wales, for northwest England and for southern Scotland, where it's already pretty much soaking wet, that would suggest a certain amount of runoff and some flooding as a possibility. 10 or 11 degrees, technically mild. It's already cooled down for Northern Ireland and Scotland, so that's a repeat performance. But the cold air proper does come back to us tomorrow evening, with a spell of sleet or snow just after dark for the hills of Northern England and also for Scotland. Having done that and got into the cold air, the frost returns and lasts throughout Saturday night and Sunday night, with subsequently colder days, Saturday being the first.